Pete blushed. No, it's fine, Mummy. Nora chuckled softly and said, Cherry's a big girl now? Pete ran out of the bathroom in a hurry after she put him down. He stood outside the door and listened to the movements inside. The running water, his mum in the bath, and then the sounds of her walking around in her slippers. After confirming she had put her nightclothes on, he opened the door and saw her lying on the bed. With her eyes closed, she said, Mummy has a very important operation in 2 days, Cherry. I need a crazy amount of sleep, so I'm going to bed now, okay? Okay, Mummy. 2 minutes later, he heard steady breathing coming from the bed, and he tiptoed over to his mother. He climbed onto the bed, found a spot in Nora's arms, and curled up close to her. Before he knew it, he'd fallen into a deep sleep listening to her heartbeat. This is wonderful, he thought sleepily as he drifted off. I have a mum at last. He didn't see the SOS messages from Cherry on his phone in his pocket. Help, Pete. Let's swap back again, Pete. I don't love Daddy anymore. Cherry sent Pete another message when Justin wasn't looking. Still receiving no reply, she gave up. She had no choice but to start tackling her assignments. Justin sat next to her when he returned. It had been 6 months since he'd last tutored his son. He didn't know what he'd got up to now. He pointed at the simplest question on the page and asked, Do you know how to solve this? Cherry's big eyes were completely blank. Justin fell silent for a moment. He flipped back through the book to where they'd been up to 6 months ago. What about this one? Cherry shook her head firmly. Justin's eyes widened. He didn't get why Pete couldn't solve these easy questions now when he'd had no problems before. He was meant to be clever. The tutors surely couldn't have done that much damage, could they? He hadn't even read the question. He said glumly, Let's continue tomorrow. Okay, Daddy. Cherry heaved a huge sigh of relief. She'd seen Lawrence poking his head into the room every now and then, and figured he probably had something to talk to her father about. She carefully climbed down and said, I'm going to go off to play now, Daddy. Justin rubbed his temples as he watched her run off. Lawrence entered the room looking concerned. Pete seems to be doing worse than the tutor said. If this goes on, he'll probably fall to last place in the assessments, right? Do you want me to contact some other tutors? There's still time before the end of the year. The Hunts held assessments for the family children at the end of every year. Pete had always been top. That was how they'd found out he had a high IQ. And now his grades had deteriorated so badly in just 6 months. Fury flared in Justin's eyes. Despite Pete's high IQ and good memory, he seemed to have forgotten so much. He had stopped learning, and his grades would suffer as a result. Justin closed his eyes and pondered for a long time before he finally sighed and said, Forget it. Let's not force him to do it anymore. This was the reason he always fell out with his son. He'd placed too much emphasis on education. He realized now that Pete's mental health was more important than anything else. Even if he really had forgotten everything that he'd learned and came last place in exams every time, they'd just live from day to day from now on. He would pave the way for Pete's future. Justin, who was usually so bold, hesitated for a moment. Then he asked Lawrence, Have you found Pete different today? The abuse from the tutors must have been going on for a long time, but his son had never once mentioned anything. Yet today, not only had he spoken up, but he also seemed to have become a lot more cheerful. What was going on? For some reason, Justin suddenly thought of what the woman had said downstairs. How did she know that his tutors were causing problems? Had Pete been talking to her about it somehow? Lawrence was thinking the same thing. Could Pete have confided in Miss Smith? There's something about her. Pete trusts her. So many other women have tried to use him to get near to you, but none of them have succeeded. Lawrence couldn't keep track of how many of Justin's tutors he'd had to handle in the past. They'd been so many. He thought for a while and asked, Do you want to give her a chance to get to know you? She does seem to have a positive influence on Pete. Justin paused for a moment before asking, What's she doing now? A hesitant look appeared on Lawrence's face. When the cleaners went to her room just now, they heard from the nanny that she's asleep. She forbade them from disturbing her. Her aunt's life is still in limbo. How can she bring herself to sleep? Justin's expression darkened. A person who can do that is too selfish to be around my son. Make sure she doesn't contact Pete anymore. Yes, sir. Lawrence was about to say more, but Justin noticed that the child had fallen asleep on the sofa. He gestured to Lawrence to keep quiet. He walked over and picked up Cherry, intending to carry her into the bedroom. Cherry sleepily placed her arms around his neck and said, "Mummy, I found my twin brother. He looks just like me." Justin paused and frowned.
How will Cherry's innocent comments about finding her twin brother lead to a shocking discovery that could change everything? Will Justin's decision to keep Miss Smith away from Pete backfire, causing more harm than good? To find out, download the Pocket FM app now. Link in the description. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more gripping stories.